My phone buzzed. Jake. I'm sorry, man. You need to see this. A photo followed, Emily, leaning in close, fingers tangled with his. My stomach twisted. The restaurant's dim lights blurred, my breath turned shallow. My world shattered in an instant. I should have seen it coming. But let's go back to the start. I used to believe Emily, and I had the kind of marriage people envied. We had been together for 8 years, married for 5. We met in college. One of those love stories where the moment you see someone, you just know. She was smart, funny, beautiful in that effortless way. When we got married, I thought I had won at life. I was ready to grow old with her, build a family, and face whatever challenges came our way. But looking back, I realized that love makes you blind. It makes you ignore the small things, the cracks forming beneath the surface. At first, it was nothing, little changes that didn't seem like much on their own. She started spending more time on her phone, tilting the screen away from me when I walked into the room. She'd get these random late-night texts and claim it was a coworker needing help with a project. I wanted to believe her. Then came the changes in routine. Emily used to hate working late. She always made a point to be home for dinner. But suddenly, late nights became the norm. Big project at work, she'd say, offering a kiss on the cheek before heading out. I trusted her. After all, this was Emily, the woman who once cried because she thought she had hurt my feelings during a dumb argument about laundry. Still, something felt off. She stopped initiating intimacy. When I reached for her in bed, she'd shift away, mumbling about being tired. Our conversations felt hollow. She'd ask about my day, but her eyes would glaze over before I even finished a sentence. The woman who once laughed at my stupid jokes, who used to tease me for my love of old detective movies, now acted like I was just another piece of furniture in the house. I convinced myself I was imagining things. That maybe work was just stressing her out. Maybe I wasn't being attentive enough. So I tried harder, planned date nights, surprised her with little gifts, left sweet notes in her bag like I used to. She smiled, said thank you, but it felt forced. Like she was playing the role of a grateful wife instead of actually feeling it. Then came the first real red flag. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and reached for her, but the bed was empty. I groggily got up and found her in the living room, curled up on the couch, whispering into her phone. The moment she saw me, she jumped like a guilty teenager caught sneaking out. "What are you doing?" I asked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. She fumbled with the screen before locking it. "Oh, nothing. Just talking to Sarah. She's going through some stuff." It was plausible. Sarah, her best friend, had recently gone through a nasty breakup. But something about the way Emily's hands trembled slightly as she set her phone down didn't sit right with me. "Okay," I muttered, but as I went back to bed, a pit formed in my stomach. Then, a few days later, she changed her phone passcode. That might not sound like a big deal, but we always had an unspoken rule: no secrets. Not because we went through each other's stuff, but because we never had a reason to hide anything. So, when I casually asked, "Hey, what's your new passcode?" she froze for half a second before forcing a laugh. "Oh, I changed it for security reasons. You know, just in case I lose my phone." That was the moment I felt the first real crack. The moment paranoia started creeping in. Because deep down, I knew Emily had never cared about phone security before. Still, I buried it. Told myself I was being that guy, the jealous, insecure husband. But the uneasy feeling didn't go away. It got worse. She started dressing differently. I always loved the way Emily dressed, simple, comfortable, effortlessly beautiful. But suddenly, she was putting in extra effort. Tight dresses, expensive lingerie I had never seen before. When I complimented her, she brushed it off. I just wanted to feel good about myself. I wanted to believe that. I really did. Then, the lies started stacking up. One evening, she told me she was heading to dinner with Sarah. But when I casually mentioned it to Sarah a few days later, she looked confused. "Oh no, we haven't gone out in weeks." That was the moment my stomach dropped. I didn't confront Emily right away, but I started paying closer attention. She became more protective of her phone, texting with a slight smile before quickly locking the screen. When she got a call, she'd step into another room. One night, she came home late, reeking of cologne that wasn't mine. "Who were you with?" I asked, my voice careful, measured. She blinked. "Just some coworkers. You're acting weird lately." She said it like I was the one being unreasonable. Like I was the problem. I forced a smile. "Just tired." I told myself I was overthinking, but deep down, I knew. Then came the night everything changed. I was sitting on the couch, flipping through channels, when my phone buzzed. A message from Jake, my old college buddy. "Jake, I'm sorry, man. You need to see this." A second later, a photo popped up. Emily. Sitting in a dimly lit restaurant. Leaning in close to a man I had never seen before. Their hands intertwined across the table. Her eyes locked on his, full of warmth and excitement, the way she used to look at me. For a moment, my brain refused to process it. It had to be a mistake. A misunderstanding. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe it was just someone who looked like her. But no. I knew that face. I knew that dress. It was one I had bought her last year for our anniversary. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. The walls around me felt like they were closing in. My hands shook, my breath came out shallow. The world tilted on its axis. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about her, about us, it all shattered in an instant. And just like that, the beginning of the end had arrived. I must have stared at that picture for 10 minutes, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. Emily, my wife, the woman I'd built a life with, was sitting across from some stranger, her fingers intertwined with his like it was the most natural thing in the world. There was no hesitation in her touch, no guilt in her smile. She looked happy. A second message from Jake popped up. "Jake, I didn't want to be the one to tell you, man. But I couldn't keep quiet." My hand shook as I typed back. "Me, where was this taken?" "Jake, that new Italian place on Oak Street. Saw her when I was out with my girlfriend. They looked real cozy, bro. I wasn't sure at first, but well, the way she was acting with him? That's not just a friend." I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. This couldn't be real. It had to be a misunderstanding. Maybe it was just an old friend. Maybe they had been talking about work. Maybe she had a good explanation. But the way they were looking at each other. No. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I got up, pacing the living room, my mind racing through the last few months. All the late nights. The phone she never let out of her sight. The sudden effort in her appearance. The cologne on her clothes. The lies. I had brushed them off, convinced myself they were nothing, because the alternative was too painful to consider. But now here it was. Unavoidable. I needed to know more. Me, how long were they there? Did you see them leave? Jake, they were still there when I left. Looked like they were finishing up. Want me to do anything? I hesitated. A part of me wanted to rush over there, flip the table, and demand answers right then and there. But I wasn't thinking straight. If I confronted her without proof beyond a single photo, she'd deny everything. Gaslight me into believing I was paranoid. No. I needed more. Me, no. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate you telling me. Jake, I'm here if you need anything, man. I put my phone down and took a deep breath. My heart was pounding, my skin hot with anger and something else, something worse. Dread. Because this wasn't just a suspicion anymore. This was real. And the next question was, how long had it been going on? I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. Emily wasn't home yet. She had texted earlier saying she'd be working late again. My stomach churned at the lie. If she was cheating, there would be more signs. I just hadn't wanted to see them before. I started with our phone bill. We had a shared account, which meant I could see all the calls and texts logged under her number. I scrolled through the list, my eyes scanning for anything unusual. And then I saw it. A single number, one I didn't recognize, appearing over and over again. At all hours. Late at night. Early in the morning. Even during work hours. I grabbed my phone and copied the number into a reverse lookup site. My pulse pounded in my ears as I waited for the results. When the page loaded, my stomach dropped. The number belonged to Ryan Carter. I didn't recognize the name, but the sinking feeling in my gut told me I should. I checked Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn, nothing. Either his profiles were private, or he was smart enough not to leave a trail. But Emily wasn't as careful. I opened her Instagram. She had gotten more secretive about her social media lately, but I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Now I saw the pattern. A few months ago, she had started liking and commenting on posts from people I didn't know. And there it was, buried in a post from a coworker's birthday dinner, a blurry group photo. Among the faces was a man I didn't recognize. Dark hair. Sharp jawline. Confident smirk. Ryan Carter. I clicked on the coworker's profile and scrolled through their older posts, trying to find more. And then I saw it. A comment from Emily, left on a post a few months back. Such a fun night. Let's do it again soon, Red Heart. And right below it, a reply from Ryan. Definitely. Can't wait, winky face. My hands clenched into fists. I had been so stupid. She hadn't even tried that hard to hide it. The clues had been there all along, and I had ignored them. I took a shaky breath, closing my laptop. My mind raced. I needed more. If she was lying about where she was tonight, there had to be more proof. And then it hit me, her location history. We both used Google Maps for navigation, and unless she had disabled tracking, her timeline would show where she had been. I grabbed my phone and pulled up our shared account. My heart pounded as I clicked on her location history for the past few weeks. And there it was. Repeated visits to a hotel downtown. A place she had never mentioned. I gripped the edge of the desk, my vision blurring. She wasn't just seeing someone. She was sleeping with him. The realization crashed over me like a tidal wave, leaving me gasping for air. I sat there for what felt like forever, my mind a swirling storm of anger, betrayal, and pain. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with everything, had been lying to my face for months. I could already hear the excuses she'd give if I confronted her. The gaslighting. The fake tears. The desperate attempts to make me feel like the bad guy. But not this time. This time, I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. This wasn't over yet. I needed to be smart. I needed to be prepared. Because soon, Emily was going to walk through that door, smile at me, and tell me how tiring her day had been. And I was going to look her in the eye, knowing the truth. The front door clicked open. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, gripping it so tightly my knuckles turned white. I had spent the last hour drowning in a toxic mix of rage, betrayal, and cold calculation. My mind ran through 1,000 ways this confrontation could go, but one thing was certain: Emily had no idea what was coming. She stepped inside, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "Hey, babe," she called casually, dropping her purse on the counter like it was just another night. "Sorry I'm late. Work was a mess today." I looked up. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup flawless. The black dress she was wearing hugged her curves, the same curves I used to trace with my hands. And yet all I could think about was how she'd been wearing that dress at dinner, with him. With Ryan. I didn't answer. I just watched her. She hesitated, sensing something was off. "Mark?" Her voice softened. "You okay?" I let out a slow breath. "Yeah," I said, my tone even. "Long day. Just thinking." She walked over and leaned down to kiss me. I didn't move. Her lips barely grazed mine before she pulled back, eyes searching my face. "You sure?" I forced a smile. "Yeah. Just tired." Let her think I was buying her lies a little longer. Let her dig herself deeper. She nodded and walked toward the bedroom. I need a shower so bad, she sighed. Today was exhausting. I bet it was. I waited until I heard the water running before I moved. My hands were steady as I grabbed her purse and pulled out her phone. Locked, of course. But I had been watching her for weeks. I knew the passcode. I entered it. Her texts were what I expected, sanitized. Nothing suspicious. But I wasn't stupid. I swiped to her hidden album in her photos. And there it was. Pictures of her and him. Selfies in a hotel room, their bodies tangled under sheets. A video, one I'd barely clicked on before I felt bile rise in my throat. I closed the app. My hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just cheating. This was mocking me. She hadn't even tried to cover her tracks. The shower turned off. I put her phone back exactly as I had found it, and returned to the couch, forcing myself to look calm. A few minutes later she emerged, wrapped in a towel, her hair damp, smelling like vanilla and someone else's cologne. She smiled. I was thinking maybe we could watch something tonight. Just relax. I exhaled through my nose. Sure, I said, my voice deceptively calm. But first, can I ask you something? Her eyes flickered, just for a second, but she kept her expression neutral. Of course. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Where were you tonight? She blinked. What do you mean? I tilted my head. I mean, where were you? You said work ran late. That true? A hesitation. Barely a second. But I saw it. Yeah, she said, forcing a casual tone. We had some last-minute reports to finish. It was a nightmare. A lie. A well-practiced one. I nodded slowly. That's funny, I said, pulling out my phone. Because Jake sent me this. I turned the screen to her, showing the picture. The one of her and Ryan. Her face went white. Do you want to try that answer again? I asked, my voice deadly calm. She swallowed hard. Mark, Don't. I cut her off. Don't insult me by pretending you don't know what this is. Her mouth opened, then closed. She licked her lips, scrambling for something to say. Finally, she settled on. It's not what it looks like. A humorless laugh escaped me. Really? Because it looks like my wife is on a date with another man. It looks like she's been fucking him. She flinched. It's not like that, Mark. I swear. Then tell me, I said, voice razor sharp. Tell me what it is like. She hesitated. Then, suddenly, the tears came. Right on cue. I was going to tell you, she whispered, voice trembling. I didn't know how. I never wanted to hurt you. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. Spare me the act, I snapped. You didn't want to hurt me? Then why did you lie to my face? Why did you let me sit here like an idiot while you were screwing someone else? Tears streamed down her face. It was a mistake, she choked out. I was lonely, Mark. You've been so distant lately, and Ryan, he listened. He made me feel wanted. I stared at her, stunned by the sheer nerve. I've been distant? My voice was barely a whisper, but the anger behind it was deafening. She nodded, sniffling. I tried, Mark. But you... Stop, I said, standing up. You don't get to blame me for your choices. You could have talked to me. You could have left. But instead you cheated. Repeatedly. She wiped her eyes. I didn't know how to stop it. I let out a slow, shaky breath, trying to keep myself from yelling. How long? She hesitated. How long? She looked away. A few months. A bitter laugh bubbled up in my chest. A few months, I repeated. So every night you came home and kissed me, told me you loved me, you were lying. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I turned away, running a hand through my hair. My chest felt tight, my skin hot with rage. I had spent so long not wanting to believe it. And now, here it was. The truth, raw and ugly, spilling from her lips. She took a shaky step toward me. Mark, please. We can fix this. I love you. I turned back to her. No, I said, my voice hollow. You don't love me. You love what I gave you. Stability. Comfort. A backup plan. She opened her mouth, but I wasn't done. You don't get to break me and then beg me to stay. Silence stretched between us. Finally, I exhaled and walked past her, grabbing my keys. Where are you going? She asked, voice panicked. Out. And without another word, I left. I don't remember driving. One moment, I was stepping out of the house, slamming the door behind me, and the next, I was parked in an empty lot near the lake, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers ached. The world outside was quiet, still, but inside my head, there was nothing but chaos. Emily cheated. The words repeated like a cruel mantra, hammering into my skull with every heartbeat. I had spent years building a life with her, trusting her, loving her. And for what? For her to lie to my face, sneak around behind my back, and then have the nerve to cry when I confronted her? The audacity of it made me sick. A harsh, bitter laugh escaped me. Had I really been so blind? The signs were there, they were always there, but I ignored them. I wanted to believe she was still the woman I married, the one who used to look at me like I was her whole world. But she wasn't. Maybe she never was. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel, closing my eyes. My chest ached, not with anger this time, but with something worse. Loss. Because no matter how furious I was, no matter how much I hated what she did, the truth was inescapable. This wasn't just the end of our marriage. It was the death of something real. I thought back to our wedding day, to the way she smiled at me as she walked down the aisle. I remembered the late-night talks, the stupid inside jokes, the way she traced circles on my skin when we lay in bed. Were those moments real? Or were they just illusions? I didn't know anymore. A knock on my window snapped me out of my thoughts. I looked up to see Jake standing outside, concern etched on his face. I rolled the window down. How'd you find me? He shrugged. You always come here when you need to think. Of course, he knew. Jake had been my best friend since college. He knew me better than anyone. He leaned against the car. You want to talk about it? I exhaled slowly. She admitted it. Jake clenched his jaw. That bitch. I let out a humorless chuckle. Yeah. He was quiet for a moment, then asked, What are you gonna do? I hesitated. That was the question, wasn't it? I could feel the anger simmering under my skin, begging for an outlet. Part of me wanted revenge. I wanted to make her hurt the way she hurt me. But another part of me, one I hated, just felt empty. I don't know, I admitted. Jake sighed and pulled out a flask, handing it to me. You need this more than I do. I took a sip, the burn of whiskey grounding me. You don't deserve this, man, Jake said. You gave her everything, and she threw it away. I nodded, staring at the lake. I keep thinking, was I not enough? The words felt pathetic coming out of my mouth, but they were real. Jake shook his head. Don't go there. This wasn't about you. This was about her. Her selfishness. Her choices. You were a good husband, Mark. You don't deserve to blame yourself for her bullshit. I swallowed hard. It still hurts. Of course it does. We sat in silence for a while. Finally, Jake spoke. You got two options. You either let this break you, or you come out of it stronger. I looked at him. And how the hell am I supposed to do that? He smirked. First, you file for divorce. Second, you live your damn life. And third, you make sure she regrets ever screwing you over. I exhaled, staring at the dark water. Divorce. The word felt heavy, final. But wasn't that what needed to happen? Could I really stay with someone who betrayed me like that? No. Emily made her choice. Now it was my turn to make mine. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I crashed at Jake's place, lying awake on his couch, staring at the ceiling while my mind replayed everything on a loop. The lies. The excuses. The way she tried to blame me for her betrayal. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him, smiling like she didn't have a husband waiting for her at home. By morning, my decision was clear. I was done. I wasn't going to let Emily manipulate me with her fake tears or desperate apologies. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me into thinking I had anything to do with this. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let her string me along while she kept sneaking around behind my back. She made her choice. Now, I was making mine. I grabbed my phone and made the first call, to a divorce lawyer. The second call was to a locksmith. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the locks had already been changed. I walked inside, my body tense, bracing for what was coming. Emily was in the kitchen, sipping coffee like it was just another morning. When she saw me, she hesitated, her eyes puffy from crying, her expression hopeful. "Mark, No," I said, cutting her off. "I don't want to hear it." She flinched. "Please, just let me explain." I tossed a manila envelope onto the table. "You can explain this to a lawyer." Her eyes widened as she picked it up, her hands shaking. "Divorce?" she whispered. "Yeah," I said, crossing my arms. "You didn't want to stop? Well, now you don't have to." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Mark, please. It was a mistake. I love you." I laughed bitterly. "No, you don't. You love what I gave you. A home. Security. Stability. But me? You threw me away the second you crawled into bed with him." She shook her head, stepping closer. "It didn't mean anything. I was confused." I held up a hand. "Stop." Her face crumbled. "You really won't give me another chance?" I stared at her, at the woman I thought I knew, and realized something. I felt nothing. The pain, the heartbreak, the desperation I had felt just yesterday, it was gone. All that was left was cold certainty. "No," I said simply. "I deserve better." She started sobbing, but I just turned and walked away. I was done. It's been 6 months since that night. 6 months since I walked away from the wreckage of my marriage and never looked back. The divorce was quick. Emily didn't fight it. Maybe she thought if she played the victim, I'd change my mind. But I never did. She moved out, taking her lies and fake apologies with her. I changed my number, blocked her everywhere, and erased every trace of her from my life. And you know what? I'm better for it. At first, it was hard. I won't lie, there were nights I lay awake, wondering how the woman I once loved could do this to me. But eventually, I stopped wondering. I stopped caring. Because the truth is, Emily wasn't worth the pain. She was just another person who took me for granted, assuming I'd always be there, no matter what she did. She was wrong. Now, I'm living my life. I hit the gym. I go out with friends. I focus on me, something I neglected for far too long. And the best part? I don't wake up every day questioning my worth because of someone else's selfish choices. Emily reached out once, a pathetic email full of regrets and what-ifs. I never responded. She doesn't get to have space in my head anymore. So if you're reading this, wondering if you should stay with someone who betrayed you, don't. Walk away. Because there's nothing lonelier than being with someone who doesn't really love you. Trust me. I know. Leave a comment with your thoughts on the story. And subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new interesting stories. See you soon.